All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream. I hope everybody's doing well tonight. We're getting a little bit of a late start. Had some technical difficulties I had to work through. NVIDIA drivers strike again. But with that said, I think I have things fixed up and running. So I think we're good to go. This time it actually affected me on Windows, so it's not just Linux, right? So tonight's plan is we're going to pick up where we left off last time, where we're going to take our newly complete language parser and use it to load scenes. So this will be the first time that we can actually kind of get into that. And what I might do is actually just kind of hard code like a hierarchy graph at first, and then worry about hooking those pieces up once we have both pieces working. So we're going to take a crack at that tonight and see where we wind up. Before I jump into it, though, I do want to take a quick second, really fast, and thank the supporters of the channel. Listed here on the screen, starting with the partners, they are Gebi Bashir and Gerboli's Inc. They are the highest tier of subscription over on Patreon and YouTube memberships. I'd also like to thank all the other supporters listed here on the screen. They are a combination of YouTube memberships, Patreon subscriptions, and Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for your support. It is greatly appreciated. That being said, I do appreciate all the viewers, either on the Twitch side or over on the YouTube side. Thank you guys very much for your support and being here. I appreciate all of you guys. We are simulcasting between YouTube and Twitch, so I do try to keep an eye on both chats as much as possible. All right. Grim Heartless, hello. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing all right. You still can't use the DisplayPort cable because of NVIDIA drivers, only HDMI. Really? Wow, that is rubbish. Thankfully, I don't have that issue. I'm using a combination of HDMI and DisplayPort. But yeah, that is very odd. Is it like an older card or something? But Supe, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. You're going to see Dune 2. Nice. Awesome. I appreciate the lurk, though. Much appreciated. All right. So, without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up our debugger. All right, let me actually bring this guy down. And we are going to run in the context of the test bed. All right, we're not going to use the unit test thing anymore. I'm also going to close out this test file because we're not going to use that guy anymore. And we're just going to kind of run this and see where it winds up, because up to this point at least, we actually haven't had a running game. So let's see what we get when we run it. Let's see. Well, it says it's debugging. Supe, thank you for the gifted tier sub. I appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. Ruche, thank you for the onigiri cheer there. Grim Heartless, you have a 2060 Super. That's a pretty decent card. I have a 2080 Super, and that's a pretty good line of cards. You have two. You have a Zotac and an MSI at the same time. Supposedly it's a pin issue that NVIDIA hates to power on the cable. Interesting. That's really weird. Yeah, I have a Zotac card as well, and it works just fine. Very strange. All right, let's see. Unable to start program. Object invoked has disconnected from its clients. Okay. That's a new one. Did my debugger die too? had driver issues right before I started the stream, and now it looks like I'm having debugger issues. All right, let me relaunch it. There we go. All right, so we run, so that's good. Let's try and load. Failed to create hierarchy graph, failed to create main scene, error loading main scene. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to grab this error, and we're going to search for it. And we're going to put a breakpoint as to why. Actually, I'm going to put a breakpoint right here. So when we create the scene, we're just creating a blank hierarchy here, and that's failing for some reason. So let's try to load this again, see if we can't figure out why. So the scene is uninitialized. And the hierarchy doesn't look invalid, right? It's just zeroed out memory. That should be fine. That might be why. Why is my cert not like breaking the application though? Remember that time I added a to-do in there and I'm like, yeah, we'll get back to this, and then forgot about it completely. Baguettes, how's it going? Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing all right tonight. From Lake, good to see you as well. Stone Dust, Durr Burger, exactly, yeah. Yeah, so let's fix that. So hierarchy graph. Galactic Dust, hello. How are you doing? Hope everything is well. All right, so our hierarchy graph, let's see, why did we not implement this? I'm guessing because I just needed to do some other stuff at the time and didn't want to bother. So the first thing we need to check for is if not out graph. Okay, error, and we'll say hierarchy graph create requires a valid pointer to hold the created graph. Return false. All right, let's get rid of these. And now that we know that we have an out graph, let's see. We don't have a view yet, which is fine. Let's see. We have levels, which I think needed to be a D array. Dirty flags, node handles. I think a lot of these things needed to be D arrays. Let me double check our logic here. So when we do I'm pretty sure most of this stuff is D arrays. I just have to refresh my memory. Okay. Build view tree. That makes sense. Okay, this is all about node recursion. We don't really care about that at the moment. Okay, so it looks like some of this stuff we're manually copying the memory. So that's interesting. Sketchy Junko. Let's see, first time chat. Oh, that's a spam, okay. Let's see. Lurking here for the chat, watching on YouTube. Cheating the system with double viewers. Appreciate that from Mike. Singy, hello. How's it going? Let's see. Great, thanks. Always nice to see other fellow developers working on custom game engines. Dang, I love custom game engines. Me too. More game engines, please. Yep. I'm in the same boat. Once the spawns of Travis start developing their own, we'll have a wave of engines on YouTube. I mean, competition's a good thing, right? Competition drives progress. So I view that as a good thing. All right. So actually it looks like we handle all of the reallocation here. So actually I guess we're not really using D-arrays all that much. So there's not a whole lot I need to do then. Root counts. All right. So all this stuff starts off zeroed. And is all handled by the ensure allocated routine. So actually, I don't think there's actually anything I have to do here, ironically. That may prove to be false, but we will see, right? So we'll just return true on this for now. And then destroy. Destroy, we do have to do some stuff. So first of all, we have to check for graph. And then actually, let's go to ensure allocated, right? Because we can actually get everything we need from this, right? And we can just essentially refactor it a little bit to destroy all of this stuff. So if I put that right there, we will say we don't need the allocate. We don't need the copy. We just need the free, and then to zero that out, right? So just do that a couple more times. And let's see, xform handles. We'll set that to 0. Let's see, is there any other properties? So the view is something that we probably need to destroy as well. Let's see, do we have a destroy view tree? We do. Okay. So destroy view tree, graph, address of graph view. And that should do everything that we need it to. So that's the first step anyway. Okay. So let's build. Do people have connection issues, or is it you? I don't think I have connection issues. Yeah, I mean, my internet says excellent at the moment in terms of connection. Let's see. I wonder if it's YouTube. Are you seeing that on the YouTube side or the Twitch side? Are you the new Linus Torvalds of game engines? No, definitely not. I'm not that smart. Found it awesome for people to be interested in graphics programming. Such a great topic. Diverse and fulfilling. Absolutely it is. Yeah. We haven't even scratched the surface here either, to be completely honest. Because graphics programming is really like only a subset of it. You're on the YouTube and it looks okay? All right. Yeah. Hopefully there's no network issues. I'm not seeing anything at the moment. Doc Lock, how's it going? Good to see you, buddy. How are you doing? Welcome to the stream. Dollcell, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. All right, so we've built here. Let's step through this again and see if we have a better result this time. All right, so I'm pretty confident that's going to pass, except it didn't. Sweet. All right, let me see why that's returning false. All right, so I load the scene. Outgraph isn't null, though. What am I missing here? It's not null. Why is that failing? You know what? I'm going to clean and build. You've been beating your head against low-level wall all day. Might have to pay for a private lesson. I don't know. I mean, who knows? That depends on what it's about, right? But yeah, DocLock, are you on my Discord server, by the way? Because if so, you can always ping me on there if you want. All right. From like you're seeing it on both. Yeah, I think it might be your internet because people are telling me it's fine. You are on the Discord. Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's a little difficult for me to have visibility of it these days because I think there's upwards of 900 people on there at the moment, which is a lot. So I don't see everything that goes on in there. But yeah, feel free to ping me on there actually, and let me know what's up. Let's see. You meant game engines because most of it's concentrated towards graphics. Yeah. Networking, hardware, math, animation, terrain, audio, geometry. Yep, exactly. It's never ending. Exactly. And even that list there is only like a tiny portion of it, right? It's crazy. Which makes it even more crazy that I'm doing this on my own. All right. So... wait for that to build. LTO Fiucci, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Welcome. Okay, built successfully. Let's try this debugging again. All right, so here is this. We'll try and load a scene. Okay, that's better. It must have just had something that required a clean build. I'm not sure what. All right, so we've created that. So that's good. So the config, we go ahead and take a copy of the config. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so debug grid creates. That I'm not too much worried about. All right, so scene create is good. Scene initialize. Scene config. Right, so we have the name and the description. And now is where we process the nodes. So we don't have any nodes because we haven't set anything up. So This is basically, I think, just going to kind of fall through to initialized and loaded and all that stuff, because we don't actually have anything in our config yet. We've essentially handed it an empty config. Oh, interesting. So it's trying to set a sampler for something. What is it actually trying to do? Skybox pass. Oh, but we don't have a skybox. Okay, so that's probably the first thing that we should fix, right? Because our old system kind of assumed that we would always have a skybox. And now we don't necessarily always have a skybox. And we won't necessarily always have a skybox. So we should probably set this up so that it doesn't actually require one. So there's probably going to be lots of little things like that, since we've kind of changed the whole structure of this, that we're going to run into. You're in Femia from YouTube. Okay, awesome. I recognize the name. Why C? Why not C++ 11 or 20? Or why not assembly? Well, those are completely on the opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So why C? There are some technical reasons for this. Mostly it's preference. So for one thing, it's a simpler language. For another thing, it compiles faster, at least faster than C++, right? I don't really use object-oriented programming or most of the features that are in C++. There are a couple that I wish I had, but I can live without them. And so I just C as a preference for me. I used C++ for a lot of years actually, and switched to C, just because I don't use most of the stuff that C++ gives you. So why bother? And then why not assembly? Because who hand rolls assembly anymore? I don't have time for that. It takes long enough to write a game engine in C. Say nothing about assembly. So yeah, I hope that answers that. I've actually gone a little bit more into detail in it in some of my other like YouTube shorts and stuff. But yeah, those are the basic high level reasons. You're literally trying to render a rectangle on a canvas in a window. You were trying to test if I would like doing better in Rust versus C, and you ended up being too soy to implement it in either. I mean, everybody starts off that way, right? No big deal. I mean, it depends on... Now you say drawing a rectangle on a canvas. So are you using like some sort of canvas API to do that, I assume? Oh, don't worry about the massive questions at all. Yeah. I always try to say, if you have a question, ask it. There's not a dumb question. The only dumb question is one that's not asked, right? So don't worry about it. You were trying to use GTK and Cairo. So, disappointment here is that I know nothing about either of those, because I don't use UI frameworks. So I don't know how much help I would be. I might be able to take a look at it and like do some Googling and figure it out, but yeah, I've never used either one of those. At least not for anything serious. I usually just roll my own UI in Vulkan or OpenGL, something like that. So I don't really use those, unfortunately. Salty Poi, thank you for the follow. Soy Mass as well, thank you for the follow. Let's see. You also feel a much better programmer since I started my engine as well. Working in so many topics makes me more versatile. All other web programming stuff seems so easy, right? It's all relative, right, to your skill set. But yeah, game engine development will definitely teach you a lot about a lot of topics for sure. The ability to solve problems increases so much. Also, the capacity to attack big problems. Yep, exactly. What is the size scale of the measurement in units? Like x equals 1, is it centimeters, inches, meters? So technically speaking, it can be anything you want it to be, right? So it's whatever you essentially make your relative scale for whatever it is you're making. So right now it's not actually defined. My thought is when I go to actually start making games, I'm going to treat 1 unit as a meter, because that's a pretty standard unit of measurement, right? So your typical character would be 2 units tall or around 2 units tall. And that's more or less what I'm going to go with. But yeah, I probably will wind up using meters, but it can be anything you want. Some crazy people will still write in assembly, like the dev of VLC. Has 80K lines of assembly in it. That's nuts. Laura Dev, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Welcome. Max, just dropping by to leave a like. I appreciate it. Thanks, bud. Good to see you again. To make the decoding part faster. Yeah, I get that. I mean, there are things like I know the Torque game engine, the original Torque game engine that was originally used in like Tribes 2 way back when, like around 2000. I know that some of the terrain code in that was written in assembly, like inline assembly in C. So yeah, there are times when you have to do that. It's kind of few and far between these days, but it's still kind of a thing. So OpenGL is my next stop. Yep, absolutely. Surely I can render a rect in OpenGL. It's actually not as difficult as you would think it would be. Actually, DocLock, if you are interested in like a quick and dirty like OpenGL intro, I actually made a WebGL series on my YouTube channel. And I think the very first thing we draw in there is a square. So you could probably just rip that code and then just port it to OpenGL. Shouldn't be difficult at all. Famous last words for graphics programming. What ideas do you have for games for when your engine is ready to make some? So I have a couple of ideas. And it looks like we're going to be running into ads here for just a minute. But before those come, I have a couple of ideas on games that we're going to use, or that we're going to use this engine for. So the idea is, we're still sort of in the fledgling steps of making a game engine at this point. So we're going to basically build a pretty simple game off of what we already have so far. And so we're going to build a very, very simple game for our first game. And then we're going to add a lot more features, make things a little bit more robust, and then we'll build something that's a little bit more complicated. Somewhere maybe around the time of the second game, maybe between the second and third game, I haven't decided, is when we'll actually kick off making our editor, right? So the first game is going to be done without an editor at all. We're just going to code everything in the IDE and roll that way. And then at some point we'll be making an editor in tandem with a game. And that'll be a little bit more complex of a game. And then I've got an idea for a game that I'm still fleshing out. That's going to be the big game that we're going to make with this. And that's going to be a long project as well. So, cool. I hope that answers your question. Editor. Yeah, exactly. You can do a lot without an editor, right? So what we're basically doing is we're making all of our intermediary formats, like our scenes and stuff like that. We're making all those things now because the editor is going to output those to our engine, and our engine will just pick it up and use it, right? So it's just kind of an intermediary format that we can use from the editor, and it'll just make things real easy to hook up. Apotham, good to see you. Welcome. Yahiko, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Welcome. We might actually hit 1,300 followers tonight on stream. Maybe. We'll see. Appreciate the follows and the support, everybody. Definitely. All right. Yeah, we're going to have ads here in a second. So just before that kicks off, I do like to pause the stream whenever ads come up. It's once every 30 minutes for 90 seconds on Twitch. So I just pause the stream on both sides, on the YouTube and Twitch side, just so that nobody misses any content. And I always suggest that you hydrate during the ad breaks, right? So I put a timer on the screen so you guys know when we're going to come back. So those ads are just going to kick off here in around a minute or so. I think probably less than that. So that's just one of the things that we do here, just so that you guys don't miss stuff. ASM is still relevant for ultra high performance. Yep. All right, and there's the ads. All right, I'm gonna hydrate. Ads over on YouTube. I see your question, but I'm going to wait to answer it until ads are over, right? So it's just about a minute left, and then I'll answer. Well, I actually have in the meantime, I have a question for you. Do you mean the in NeoVim? Okay, I was just going to ask, in this one or NeoVim? Yeah, okay. I'll answer your question in just a second. A little under 30 seconds to go. Then we'll be back. Drink some more water. I haven't had enough today. All right. Ads are dead. We are back. So a question from Hads over on the YouTube side is, what is my color scheme? My color scheme is Adwaita. So, in fact, if let me pull up, let's see, what did I put that under? Not dot files. Is it dot files general? Where did I put that? I forget where it is on Windows. I was going to pull up my NeoVim config, but now I can't think for the life of me where it is. But Adwaita is the name of the, I'll type it out. That's the name of my, my NeoVim configuration. Better yet, though, exclamation NeoVim will give you a link to my NeoVim setup, where I have an article that I wrote on my website describing everything that I have set up, as well as a link to a repository with the setup in it. So that might be more beneficial to you. Hope that helps. Okay. Probably a good call to do 1 to 2 games before the editor. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking, right? Just to kind of get the runtime sorted first. Don't want to ask this as it's probably asked a ton, but what is the stack you use for C Vulkan Game Dev, libraries, frameworks, etc.? So we're using Vulkan as our rendering backend. And that's our initial rendering backend, right? So we have a system where our engine has a rendering front end that it connects with, and then we have a plugin based rendering backend. So our Vulkan renderer is a plugin to the engine. It is not included in the core. We'll eventually have a Direct 3D and a Metal plugin for those renderers as well, maybe OpenGL. So that is one library or API if you want. The only things that we are using in terms of libraries in this entire project are STB image and STB TrueType for loading various image formats and loading font files. These eventually are going to be located in our editor tools as opposed to the runtime, because we're going to have custom binary formats for these things. So eventually these will be moved out of the engine core. And then the other thing is in our audio plugin, or our audio system, we have an OpenAL plugin. So much like the Vulkan renderer, we have a OpenAL specific plugin that we use for our audio system. And that uses a few small libraries to load Vorbis and MP3 format audio files. Other than that, we've written everything here from scratch. So we use Clang as our compiler, just because it's very easy to set that up for cross-platform compilation using the same makefiles. So it works out to be just really easy to set up. We are using P or C. Yep, no C++. And then I also have this set up so that it will work with VS Code, and then also NeoVim as well. So I hope that covers everything. App data, local, and Vim, that's where it was, yeah. I even had it in my history. I just couldn't remember for the life of me what it was. So let's see. Yeah, there's the color scheme right there. So yeah, this is my current, well, my Windows version of this is a little bit out of date, but this is what my Vim config looks like, right? So I've actually cleaned this up a little bit, but yeah. Anyway. +1 for NeoVim, let's go. Yeah, so actually, funny enough, I was having a conversation the other day with Spiro, and we were jokingly throwing around the idea of writing an editor from scratch. And so that might actually be coming at some point. Is my config raw Lua as in no plugins? So my config I do actually use plugins. Yeah, several plugins. But yeah, the config is in Lua as well. But yeah, I have my plugins set up here. And these are the plugins I'm using, right? So there's a lot of them. So yeah, but yeah, my idea for an editor is basically to create my current NeoVim setup, but not have to load plugins to do it, right? Editor from scratch, like without ImGUI, stuff like that. Yep. Vulkan powered editor. Yep. It's exactly what I'm thinking. So we'll see. Should be interesting. First time chat, the Geeko one. Thanks. Welcome. Oh, your HADs from the YouTube side. Okay, I appreciate that. Appreciate the double follow. Thank you. You have a WAS API and direct sound backends in your engine. Haven't touched Linux audio yet, even in your small libc project. You kind of have, but can't get it working. WSL2 doesn't support Linux audio yet. Yeah, fair enough. I decided it was going to be less painful for me to get audio up and running if I just use OpenAL. So that's what I did. Because it gives me all that stuff out of the box, right? Direct sound is, I think, one of the things it uses under the hood on Windows. In the future, are you going to add scripting to your game engine? So my perspective on that is changing over time, right? Because we already actually have a scripting language that we kind of, it's more of a storage format than a scripting language, but we've already kind of half developed one, right? So maybe. My initial answer to that was I was going to write it as a plugin and make it optional. We'll see. Yes, please, an editor. Want to do that eventually because I feel like none of the options satisfy me. Yeah, so we're going to take our own crack at it, right? You found no Java software engineer. First time chat, welcome. Found no Java streamer so far. Didn't the Cherno start in Java way back when? I think he did, but yeah, I don't know, Java for game dev. I mean, I've done it, like for Android back in the day, but yeah, I don't know. Not for me. I prefer C. Mini audio could be a good pick too. Yeah, that's true. Like Godot, exactly. Yeah. I think more or less that's probably what we're going to wind up with, right? Is like, and who knows, like maybe if I make the standalone editor, maybe I can make that as a plugin to the engine, right? Doclock. Java is the only language that you write that you haven't streamed you writing yet. That's fair enough. I haven't touched Java in a number of years now, so I'd be a complete noob at it again, I think. Lauren Zeus, you thought you were insane because you couldn't see what I was responding to? What do you mean? Tammin, hello. Good to see you. How's it going? Be a Java guy. Be a Java guy. It's an insult in this times. Yeah, I mean, kind of is these days. Java is mostly bound to corporate NDAs and other BS. Yeah, that's true. That's mostly where it's used, honestly. You just came from YouTube. Okay. What's your take on Zig? So, I've talked a lot about this with Spiro. Thank you guys for the follows, by the way. So I talk about this a lot with Spiro, and I kind of like what I'm seeing with it. I haven't actually tried using it, but I've read up on it a little bit. The only reason I'm not jumping in with both feet and giving it a try is because it's so much in its infancy right now. I want to wait till it stabilizes a little bit before I try it, but it has my attention. I'll put it that way. Which is the first non-C based language that I've seen that I've said that about in a while. Sorry for my English. So, LTO, never apologize for that, right? Like, your English is just fine. I understand exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it's just fine. Don't worry about it. Honestly, like, English is my primary language and I screw it up all the time, so don't worry about it, right? Your English is just fine, I promise. What's your recommendation source for learning C? Coming from web dev and wanted to learn lower level programming. So usually what I start off with is this book. Let me make sure it's in frame. Right there. So this is Sam's Teach Yourself C in 24 hours. That's 24 cumulative hours. And I think this is a pretty good book. Also, I usually recommend if people are wanting to do game engine development, I also suggest... Oh, where is it? What did I do with it? It's Game Engine Architecture by Jason Gregory. I don't know what I actually did with it. I think I carried it downstairs so I could have a read again and forgot to bring it back. But that's a fantastic book that not only gives you an overview of game engines, but also teaches you some low-level stuff in the very front of the book. That's really good, right? So, yeah, it's definitely that's where I would start, anyways. And then also, don't just read. Obviously, just write lots of code. Don't be afraid to throw things out, right? I hope that helps. Started working on prototypes for the things I wanted to add to my engine. Awesome. Yeah, guys, if you don't mind, keep chat to English, just because I don't speak Spanish. At least I don't speak Spanish or Portuguese or any of that. I know some of the bad words, but that's about it, right? So yeah, if you guys could just keep it to English, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, no, I get it. No big deal. It's not like a bannable thing or anything, you know. Like, obviously, if you guys are like, no, F you, I'm going to keep doing it anyways, then whatever. But, yeah. No worries whatsoever. It's just, I can't understand it, so it makes it weird for me, you know. Tammin with a 5-stream streak. That's awesome. Appreciate that, buddy. Okay. Yes, I am on Twitch too. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm keeping an eye on both. Yeah, I do simulcasting between YouTube and Twitch. So I've got the Twitch chat over here and the YouTube chat over here. Let's see. Java is a terrible idea for game programming. just look at Minecraft. It was written in Java and it's terrible performance. Also eats up so much memory. It's because it's garbage collected, right? You don't use garbage collection like in game programming, just in general. Like, unless you're doing something super simple where it really doesn't matter that much. But yeah. Scary Hutman, you are on YouTube. But yes, I am also on YouTube and Twitch. If that's what you meant to ask. All right. Did you try C compiler from Zig? It's very good cross-cut compilation. And that's one of the things that I've heard about it that I really like, right? You might have gone too far. You were poking around the playlist, and now you found a Dave's Garage video learning how to implement set pixel from scratch. Awesome. Dave's Garage is a fantastic channel, by the way. I love listening to that dude talk. Any math books you recommend for Game Engine Dev? So not a math book per se. But there is a fantastic YouTube channel. Let me just see if I can remember the name of it, because it always takes me a second. Okay, so it is called 3 Blue, 1 Brown. And this dude has really good videos on all kinds of math topics. So I'll drop a link in chat on both sides to that. If you guys need math stuff, that is an excellent resource for it. One of the best I've found. Yeah, Tammin knew it off the top of his head. My dyslexia kicks in and I always get it backwards. I always want to say 1 blue, 3 brown, but I know that's not right. So I always have to look it up. Spiro, you have a feeling that I'm going to try Zig in the near future and will most likely end up liking it, with a few gripes about it. I mean, that's fair for anything, right? I have gripes about C. Has points that are solid. I do think I'll appreciate those points. Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying it. I just want to wait a little bit longer. Well, it's not, till it's like not in its infancy. Isn't it still like version 0.1 or something like that? Yeah, 3B, 1B has intuitive explanations for sure. It's one of the best resources out there. Yeah. Yeah, 0.1, 0.12. Okay. Yeah, so it's a long way to go. Yeah, exactly. The whole thing that bothers me with Vulkan DirectX 12 is the descriptor set idea, which Kronos now tries to fix with descriptor indexing instead of standardizing something similar to OpenGL bindless model where you just have a uint64 handle. Yeah, and the problem is like not everything even supports bindless, right? So it's not even something you can just use because not everything supports it. When I read about bindless at first, I was super excited until I saw that like it's not widely supported, right? There's lots of stuff that doesn't support it. And it's like, well, why am I going to write 2 different methods of handling it? I might as well just handle descriptors. But to be honest though, like once you wrap your head around descriptors, it's not that bad, right? It's all about update scope. And as long as you keep that in mind, it's generally not too bad. Cakes tried Zig on stream. The amount of pain he suffered was legendary. Maybe one of these days I'll do that, if I truly hate myself. Although, one could argue that me thinking about writing my own editor to build my game engine in is kind of the definition of that. I might try a stream of that soon, honestly, where I kick that project off. We'll see. Let's see. His videos on quaternions made me half understand it. Exactly. Yeah. Real-time rendering has some very salient math concepts or engines. That's true. And I have that book right back there. Yep. That's a great book as well for math. I forgot about the all the math stuff in there. Yeah, you're waiting for a Zig to hit stable. Exactly. Yeah, because I don't want to learn it and then like have to unlearn stuff. Learning things for me isn't a big deal, but unlearning stuff is a huge deal for me. Okay. Cakes has a mental blockade and often tries to do stuff the way he already does in C. Yeah, which, if I'm learning a new language, I try to put that out of my head. It's difficult, though. That's probably my main aversion to Rust, to be completely honest. I'm not a fan of the compiler slapping me every time I try to manage my own memory. I find having just one big texture manually sample from it with wrapping, etc. is way easier. You just need to bind one texture. Yes, but that has its limitations, right? So I know Carmack did this with one of the IdTech engines. I think it was IdTech 5. And he later said he regretted it. Because obviously the texture can only be so big, first off. It makes it a huge pain in the ass for your artists. And it's also, because of that limitation, right? Like handling mip mapping and handling like animated textures and stuff like that, or handling high resolution textures becomes problematic as well. And then you wind up having multiple of those mega textures, and it's just not worth it at that point. For some things, it can work, but I think texture, like layered textures, make more sense. So let's see. We should stream Linux from scratch first. Then we can build an OS, build an editor, and to build the game engine in. DocLock, you have no idea how many times where I've just been like, let's just go back to the old school way of doing things because I don't know how many of you were gaming when this was still a thing, but a lot of MS-DOS games, or that games from that era, actually came with an operating system on them. And you put the disk in the computer and you booted from that disk. And that was the operating system along with it, right? And so I've had thoughts about doing that before. The Fluff 9. First time chat, welcome. New here. What's your thoughts on the streamer Pirate Software in terms of his personality and level of expertise? So I think his personality is top tier, right? I like Thor a lot. I think he's a cool dude. In terms of level of expertise, I think he's more of a high-level dev, and I think that that's totally fine. He does have some low-level experience with hacking and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, as far as experience goes, he's got lots of varied experience, even outside of just game development, right? So I think a lot of that stuff is super valuable. One of the things that he has experience with that I think that every developer should have experience with is QA. I also have a background in QA. I did QA at one point, and I think it opens your eyes to looking at software development in a different light, and thinking about the code that you write in a different way, right? So yeah, I think that's him pushing the importance of QA. I think is a very valuable thing for the industry, and I definitely back that. I also like a lot of the stuff that he does regarding the ferret rescue and the money he donates for various charities and stuff like that. I think he's a cool dude. Are we talking about virtual texturing? So I was talking about specifically like mega texturing, where you basically have this gigantic single texture and you just essentially tile map out of it. Use UV coordinates to just sample out of it, right? That's more or less what I was talking about. Also, with one giant texture, if you need it back in the CPU for some reason, goodbye PCIe bandwidth. Yeah, so there would certainly be situations where you wouldn't want to do that, right? You wouldn't want, like, really the only thing you'd ever want to use mega texturing for is static textures only. Anything that's going to update, forget it. It's not worth it. By far, C is better syntax than Rust. I tend to agree. Sean Barrett has an ancient video from 2007 or 2008 where he implemented virtual texturing and quite ancient OpenGL. That doesn't surprise me. He still uses Visual Studio 6, I think. QBasic. QBasic is my OG programming language, actually. It's what I started with. I actually started with QBasic, and then I did some Pascal back in the day using Turbo Pascal. Wait, holy crap, you're right. I never realized it was doing that. Wait, what did I miss, Spiro? I missed something. Why do you not start building your own hardware and CPUs? Don't tempt me. Unless you do not need mega spare textures, I assume you mean sparse textures, then big texture is fine. Take a look at how Cyberpunk does its material system on YouTube on the Digital Dragons channel. You know what? I will check that out. I will check that out off stream, because I think that Cyberpunk is a beautiful game and I love the way that it looks. So I will definitely check that out. It was a presentation of virtual texturing. Okay. You hit 40K coffees. Nice. 40% of the way there. Yeah, and Tammin, I'm eventually gonna add some other rewards to that as well. If you're ever on Discord, by the way, you should ping me. We should have a conversation about that. You're the ripe old age of 40 and just learned? Wait, just learned about what? What are you talking about, Spiro? I put the Rust burrow checker in the same category as linters, static analyzers, and unit tests. I'm using the computer automated tasks to improve or ensure the reliability of my code. Why would I not want that? Yeah, so yes, while I agree, it is a very different way of thinking about things, and it makes things like handling your memory the way that we do in games a lot different, right? Not impossible. In my case, it just comes down to preference, right? I'm just not a huge fan of the way it does it, right? But I would definitely not be like telling people don't use it, right? Because it has plenty of advantages, right? I'm just a grizzled ancient that prefers C. Mega texturing equals virtual texturing. Yeah. Shadow maps with virtual texturing seems to be a good idea. Yeah, so I'm using layered textures for that, but that might be a decent way to go as well. Let's see. Sarin33, first time chat. You also started with QBasic. You used to hack on Nibbles and Gorilla games that are bundled with it. Yes, I remember those. I played the crap out of those too. Those were awesome. Oh, the floppy disks. Wait. Oh, you mean the floppy disk that had games on them? You didn't realize that it had like a little mini OS on there that was loading too? Is that what you mean? Mega textures are not virtual textures, aren't they? They seem similar. Sean's video called Virtual Textures, aka Mega Texturing. Yeah, I wonder how different they are. Virtual textures uses mega textures, but the core principle is streaming parts you need when you need them. Oh, okay, so it's okay. I always get hung up on terms sometimes. Semantics, yep. Did I hear someone say Gorilla? Yeah, we were talking about the Gorilla game that came with QBasic. You had no idea those floppy disks had a mini OS. Yeah, essentially, right? Because it was you weren't booting DOS. A lot of times you were booting like a version of DOS, but it like wasn't the whole thing, right? A lot of times they actually came with like their own little OS that just had super basic input support and the ability to blit directly to the screen, which back then was literally writing to a address in RAM to actually draw something on the screen. That's how you did it. "40 years old and now I know." I didn't know that at the time, but I did learn it after the fact. Shadow map technique is called VSSM, virtual sparse shadow maps. Yeah, I have heard that one. You know what else I've heard is ads. And I do see the YouTube chats over here. I will catch up on those in just a minute. And I see there's a couple questions in there, so I will answer those when we come back. I do like to pause the stream whenever ads come up, which ads are served over on the Twitch side once every 30 minutes for 90 seconds. So that nobody misses any content, I'd like to pause the stream, and then when we come back, I'll answer your questions. So we've got about 40 seconds left. You're flipping to and from the stream while playing EverQuest? Awesome. I haven't played EverQuest in years. Well over a decade, actually. Ads are a good time to check back in your spells. Yep, exactly. It's also a good time to hydrate. All right, cool. We are back. So we've got some stuff over here on the YouTube side. I want to catch up on that. You've been using Odin for a side project. After that's finished and released, you're going to go back to C99. Oh, interesting. What is making you want to switch back to C99 out of interest there? OS on a disk would be good for a Raspberry Pi. Yeah. Well, that would be an interesting project, right? To make take a Raspberry Pi and essentially write like a small OS for it and then a game for it, and you'd essentially be making your own game console. That might be an interesting project. Vulkan sure as hell is not going to run on that, but you can already do it with Raspbian and an SD card. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. Are you programming in command prompt? So this actually says command exe, which is interesting because I'm actually technically running PowerShell. Right? So I'm in PowerShell, right? But as soon as I go into NeoVim, I think it's like wrapping that in command, which is deeply hilarious to me. That's your PowerShell power line. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a little bit slow though. Let's see. There's another one in here somewhere. Do our materials just hold handles to their textures? So more or less, yeah. And that's one thing that we're going to, well, actually technically right now they actually hold pointers to textures, which is bad. So we're going to change that to handles at some point soon. But to answer your question, yes, the materials are that as well as a few other properties about the surface. Odin is still unstable, and you've run into a bug here or there. That's what's keeping me from trying Zig just yet. I really want to try it, but instability is not something that you want. Or I should say, instability in your language is not something that you want when you're writing a game engine, right? There's enough opportunity for instability there without that. Yeah, Doom 2016 still used megatextures, and I think that's because Doom 2016 was idTech 5, I believe. Because I'm pretty sure idTech 5 is the one that used megatextures. And Carmack backpedaled from that so quickly after. Yeah, they dropped megatextures and switched to bindless textures. Yep. Which I'd be interested in knowing how they did that, knowing that that's not like widely supported everywhere. There's plenty of GPUs that don't support it, so I'd be interested in knowing how they did that. This is like a phase when they were using 2 disk drives so that they could put the OS in A. Yep, and the program in B. Yep, exactly. I had one of those too. Thanks for the lurk, Doclock. Appreciate it. Surprised to know, but when I was able to buy my PC, I was at 15. Oh, okay. Yeah, so 15 is pretty good for getting your first computer, I would say. The one that I used when I started programming was technically my grandfather's machine, and I was like 7 at the time, but I didn't get my own computer until I was probably 13, 12, 13, something like that. Epic updated Fortnite shadow mapping to use VSSM. Turns out it pairs very well with nanite geometry. That I do believe. I'm not going to do all... You're not going to do AAA, so virtual texturing, or rather in my case, building a texture atlas as you load textures is good enough for the solution. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not going to be doing like AAA level stuff here either. I'm only one person. Very good for 2D games. Yeah, exactly. Okay, Taman, that sounds good. Sounds good to me. Yeah, just shoot me a DM at some point, maybe tomorrow. Yeah, it would work well for low poly games as well. All right. Coders are already unstable enough. Exactly. Yep. Okay. Cool. I think I finally caught up on chat. Good age, but you didn't have to fight a bear for the PC. That's, well, I mean, my grandfather was a bit of a bear, right? So, in a way, I kind of did. To convince him to get me one. So, in a way, I did. Okay. Where were we even? Because I was catching up on chat and I completely lost track of where we were. I think we were looking at... We ran into an issue where skyboxes are required. So I guess we should probably look into fixing that, right? So let's see. Are we still paused on the exception? We are. All right, so we're rendering the skybox pass, which is in our render graph. Let's see. So that's the first pass in our forward graph. So we have to actually render that. That does make sense. But we should be actually skipping the... We should be skipping the draw of the skybox if it doesn't exist. And I thought we actually had that in place. Yeah, ext data skybox. Okay. So the ext data skybox is being populated. So my question there is, actually, skybox pass extended data. So we use that in the forward render graph. We prepare the frame here. We start off as 0 for the extended data skybox. If the scene is loaded, let's see, this is all shadow map preparation. Okay. So this is making a heck of an assumption, and this is a hack that came back to bite us, right? So we're saying if the skyboxes array exists, just use the first one, but we're not taking into account that could be an empty array, right? So we eventually do want to support multiple skyboxes. So So what we're going to do is actually fix the hack, right? So I'm going to stop this from running. So what we should be doing here is we'll say if scene skyboxes exists, then the first thing that we're going to do is U32, and we'll do skybox count equals darray length scene skyboxes, and then instead of this, we'll say if we have a skybox count, then use the first one. Otherwise, use nothing, right? And that should keep us from crashing. The other thing I want to check really quickly is it is a darray. Okay. In fact, all of these are darrays. So darray of directional lights, darray of point lights, darray of meshes, terrains, skyboxes. I wonder why the comment wasn't showing up. Okay. All right, so that should fix that issue. I suspect we're also going to have issues with lack of a directional light. Because theoretically, we should be able to load an empty scene, right? And that shouldn't be a problem. And we never really had that capability before, never really tested it. So now, before we actually build one out, we ought to get it working, right? So let's try to load again. All right. And let's actually just get rid of the breakpoint and just run. See what happens. All right, so we've created our grid correctly, so that looks good. All right, so that's encouraging. So we know that our scene structure at least got created. We are creating the grid outside of the scene hierarchy, which is not great. And I'm thinking we're probably eventually going to take the scene or the grid out of the scene and just have it like render globally within the viewport itself. Have that more of a global thing instead of reliant on the scene, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so that looks like it worked. What are we crashing from here? Destroy tree. Okay. So we've got a bug in our tree destruction. So let's go ahead and stop this and go back to the bottom here where we destroy the tree. Should have checked for this before. So we actually need to say if not graph or not view, return right away. And then if view roots, then we can do all this stuff. Otherwise, don't bother. All right, so that's going to be the root count. This will only happen if we have that. Okay, that should be good there. Missed the last stream. Is this a case and scene? Not yet. So what we're doing is we're taking the, because remember before we actually kind of sidebarred on the case and stuff, we actually, we created a new scene hierarchy or hierarchy graph and came up with the new Xform system and all of that. And so we're in the process of hooking that stuff back up, getting that working with the scene. And then once we're sure that that works, then we'll go ahead and hook up all of the serialization from the actual scene and stuff at that point. Let's see. The Polish army had a bear during World War II. I mean, yeah. Fair enough. You said that's why the cost of the PC was so much. Yeah, no, I get that. PCs used to be a lot more expensive back in the day too than they are now, believe it or not. All right. So we've built. So now we should be able to load. So we'll load a scene. All right. So loading scene. Let's go ahead and hit the unload button. Okay, unloading works, right? Just a basic scene, that's fine. I'm gonna load now. Okay, that's bleating about our console objects, which there are some bugs around that, but we're gonna actually refactor that at some point, so I'm not gonna worry about it. Now I'm gonna do what I did before. I have an empty scene loaded up. I'm gonna exit and make sure that it destroys, and it does destroy everything. So our empty scene works, and now we can just kind of go through and start hooking up all of the individual bits. So I think the way that I'm going to tackle this is when we go to load the scene, instead of trying to parse a file, what I'm going to do is basically construct a graph manually and go from there. Because I think that makes the most sense in terms of what we need to have working. Let's see. Psycode, how's it going? It's been a bit. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you again. Ruche, thank you for the stretch redeem and the hydrate redeem. And the onigiri cheer. I appreciate it. Okay. So, where's going to be the best place to do this? I suppose. Let's trace this back for a second. Let's go to the test bed, which is where we're kicking off the scene loading, right? So we have load main scene here. And right now we're just kind of loading the resource and not really doing anything with it. Scene config. Right, so we've got that. So I guess this is probably where we'd actually want to hook that up. Is what I'm thinking. So let's do J Noobstar. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Has indeed, can't always catch a stream. Bit late in the night for me, but glad to be back. I appreciate that. Yeah, every once in a while, if I have a little bit of additional time, I try to stream on the weekends during the day, like if I can squeeze one in. Because yeah, I realize this time doesn't work for everybody, but unfortunately, every time is gonna like leave some people out. Unfortunately, but that's what VODs are for, I guess, right? It's not the same, I know, but all right, so. Actually, let me not do this here. Because really the resource system is what's going to connect us, right? So we could actually just hard code this in the resource system for now. I think that makes sense. Let's do... we don't want the... We want test scene 2. So we want this guy. We basically want to recreate this, more or less. So this is going to have the sponza and then the tree as a child of the sponza, is what I'm thinking. So I guess let's go to scene loader. And if I remember, we basically commented and clobbered a whole bunch of stuff here. Yeah. So to do pass to case and parser, like all of that stuff, right? So what we can do here is we'll go ahead and set some properties, right? So did we set some defaults there. Oh, it looks like I commented out like half the code, but like most of it is actually just nuked. Okay, that's fine. I think I kept this stuff here for reference, I'm guessing, for like some default stuff. So let's do a hack, and we're going to say temporarily construct a scene hierarchy will read from file later, right? Because that's going to be a little bit of an involved step. So we'll do resource data. So I guess let's see, version, description. We have this new properties. So we should probably actually change this up a little bit. So our scene config. Do we want to have, I suppose these could be like the properties, right? Or should we have like maybe we should have like a properties name, properties description. Do I want to be that granular with it? Do I care? I suppose I can always change that later. All right, let's just do this. So resource data, we'll do name. And we're going to say a hard-coded test scene. And we aren't using the name for anything, right? Actually, that's more of a description, honestly. Right? Resource data, name, and we'll say test scene 2. So we have a hard-coded test scene, description, and then resource data nodes equals darray create. And this is, what type was this again? I guess it was scene node config, I think it was. Yes. Okay. So we'll create a new set of nodes. And I guess the first node that we'll create is just the Sponza one, right? We'll see if we can get that working. Because that's a nice test object. So we'll say resource. Actually, let's do scene node config Sponza. And we'll do Sponza dot name equals Sponza. Go figure. Sponza dot let's see. Sponza dot attachments equals darray creates scene node attachment config. Right, and then we'll need to do an attachment there. Let's see, we have. Do the xform too, I suppose. So Sponza xform. Scene xform config. Why is that a pointer? Why would we need more than one of those? Why is that a... I don't see why that should have to be a pointer. Oh, because it might not exist, right? I forgot about that. Okay. Because we can technically not have an xform for it, right? So equals kallocate size of xform config, right? And then memory tag. Let's see, what tag do we want to use for this? I guess we can just tag it as part of the scene, right? That should be fine. Scene configuration, technically. So we'll do a xform for it, and then spawns a xform, and scale. We will do vec3 creates, and we'll do 0.01, right? This has got to be pretty small. So I'm just going to mimic what's in this file, essentially. And 0.01f, whoops, 1f. Sponza.xform.position is equal to vec3 creates. The first one is going to be 0. And then we'll do -1. And then we'll do, what is that, 0 again. And then Sponza xform rotation is just going to be quaternion identity, right? So we want to use the default for that. And then attachments. Attachments, we are going to have one attachment that's going to be of type static mesh. So Sponza, scene node attachment config, Sponza mesh attachment. Obviously, we're not going to have to do like all of this hard-coded stuff when we actually hook up the file parsing, right? We're just kind of getting a version of this working so that we can test our hierarchy, right? So obviously, we're not going to have all of this code to write out of all the time. So we'll start by zeroing that out. Sponza mesh attachment. The name is just going to be static. Well, actually, that's a name. Do we have a type? What's our attachment is void. So we're missing something here. So our attachment config has a name. Which is probably going to wind up being... I guess we could keep a name property in there. I don't know that we're going to use that, but what we do need is scene node attachment type. We are going to need a type, and that should be the first. We're going to put that first in the structure. And the reason that we're going to do that is because then we can cast the structure itself to that type enumeration, slam it into a switch statement, and then it makes it really easy for us to cast the type, right? So the type here is going to be attachment type static mesh, right? Sponza mesh attachment name. I'll put something in there for now, I guess. Sponza mesh. Fine. And then the data itself, which is going to include that resource name. Sponza mesh attachment, right, which is just the void pointer. We can take that. Let me think about this for a second. Actually, yeah, that's fine. Okay. We want to k-allocate that. We're going to say size of Scene node attachment config. No, we don't want that. We actually want ads. So we're breaking for ads because we're served those once every 30 minutes on Twitch for 90 seconds. So we just break the stream so that way nobody misses any content, right? All right. I'm just cosplaying as a parser. Don't worry, chat. Can also use a string ID to use internally instead of a full string. Yeah, that's true. Okay, Mesmeroth, I will answer your question as soon as ads are over. I'll answer that. Ads are almost done. Okay, ads are dead. All right, so there was a question in here. Do you have or recommend a guide for Vim/NeoVim? So what I have done, a couple of different things that I did is I used the Vim tutor. And you basically, I went through that once or twice a day, every day for like a week or two, I want to say. Just so that you have, you're constantly hitting it, right? And getting used to the Vim motions and all that stuff. And it runs you through like a series of the basic things that you need to understand about Vim, just to use it. And then it's a combination of that. And then there was also a game that you play by using Vim key bindings. I'm trying to remember what the heck it was called. What was it? Was it Vim Adventures, maybe? Yes. It was this guy. So you learn Vim while playing a game, right? And it literally starts you off with the HKJL, moving around and stuff like that, right? So this was a really good resource for that. Yeah, Vim Adventures, yep. I'll drop a link on both chats. And so just repetition of those things, and then eventually I just bit the bullet and started using it at work, and that was when I got really proficient with it. Really proficient, right? I'm still not all that proficient with it, but enough to be dangerous anyway. Let's see. Do we have... static mesh attachment? I'm not sure that that's it. Scene. It is it. I thought so. Okay, so our attachment is pretty simple, right? Just has an attachment type and a resource name. And actually looking at this, the reason we had this attachment type I actually broke by having the name here. So let's get rid of the name. We don't need that, right? So the attachment, the scene node config, and I'm taking a page out of Vulkan's book to do this, is the very first field in this is the type, right? So you can look at the type, and from that, cast the entire thing to one of these, right? And it gives you, actually, is that going to work? That's not going to work. Because it would technically have to be, you would cast the attachment, this, to the correct type, right? So we don't really need a name, but you can basically get this and then cast this to it, right? So that's how we know what type to use. So we have our attachment. Now we can say sponza, sponza.attachments. Oops. And we want to d-array push into that. Sponza attachment. Sponza mesh attachment, rather. Right, so we create the attachment. We add it to the attachments array. I'll actually just do this, right? We have the X form here. I think that's actually enough. Like, we don't have to do like all of this stuff, right? I think this is actually enough that it should give us some sort of an idea here. So we have this, the sponza. The last thing we need to do in this case is do resource data, actually d-array push resource data nodes. And we're going to push sponza into that, right? Add to global nodes array. We're not going to worry about child nodes or anything else like that for right now. Theoretically, if we load this up now, we should get a sponza mesh. Unless I've missed something in the actual scene loading code. Let's see. Yeah, I hope that helps, Mesmeroth. It helped me for sure. How do you block, comment, uncomment? Just curious to know what solution you've worked out, because this kills me. So, that was something that I had to hack. Let's see, do I have... Yeah, this right here. So this key binding right here, which I have in normal and I forget what X mode is. I'm trying to remember. I wrote this a while ago. Basically what it does is I hit control and then in my case / which is actually represented by an underscore, which is weird. It calls feed keys GBC, which is actually something that's used to toggle comments. And so it's like a key binding that calls a key binding. But it had to be done this way because like just assigning it the normal way that you would didn't work for me. So yeah, but it allows me to do that. Yeah, there are a lot of plugins for it. Did I actually? I'm trying to remember now. Did I? I think the only plugin I'm using is actually this to-do comments plugin that I have for my highlighting, but I don't think I actually used a plugin for that. I think it uses the LSP to determine like language specific comment type, but that's about it. I don't think I'm actually using any specific plugin for it. I don't believe. You can write your own comment function. You wrote your own, you're happy with it. Fair enough. I might eventually do that because it's probably more portable or more compatible than what I'm using. All right, so I built this, right? I think I'm pretty sure I did. Okay. Let's run real quick and see where we land with this. So I'm going to load. Immediate crash. Sweet. All right, let's see. So scene initialize. Config nodes, node count. We do have one node. So we get an invalid handle. Scene node initialize. Okay, so the node config here is Sponza. We do have attachments. We do have one attachment. Okay, we do have an X form. Is the X form correct? More or less. Rounding errors, but that's fine. Okay, so what is it bleating about then? X form from position, rotation, scale. All right. Womp womp. Our X form system is foobar. So we have local matrices, but we don't have world matrices. Oh, what a bananas. All right, so we need to go to Xform system. I'm not surprised because we haven't actually exercised this code at all. So let's see. Let's do local matrices equals. Oh. Copy pasta strikes again. What a dingus. This should be world matrices. Okay, I think that might be the only place where that's an issue. Yeah. Okay. All right. Devlog, thank you for the subscription over there on YouTube. Appreciate that. Welcome. All right, so we've built. Let's run. And load. Womp womp. All right. What have we done here? Valid allocator, size, and alignment. Okay, so that tells me we probably passed a 0 somewhere. Okay. So let's actually... Are we on the same node as before? Yes, we are. Okay. If nodes attachments... Greg Inc., thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Welcome. Okay, so attachment count. We didn't get that far. Oh, okay. We're actually here. Still. Okay. So we do node acquire. That's to get us a new node. Graph node handles is undefined. It's null. In fact, everything is. So did we... How did we wind up with a null graph? So the hierarchy graph... Oops. The hierarchy graph was never initialized, is what I'm getting from this. So we've created it, but we never initialized it. Which is consistent with what I'm seeing here. We never called it. Okay. That would do it. So we need scene initialize. That was like around line 120, I think. Or, yeah, I'm looking right at it. Okay. Wait, this is scene node initialize. This is not necessarily what I want. We want scene initialize. Right. Here we go. Way later in the file. Okay. So regardless of whether we have a config or not, we need to do hierarchy graph. Do we not have... We have update. We have create. Wait a minute, though. I thought our maybe we're not doing an ensure allocated when we should be within that. So ensure allocated. New node count. Okay, so when we do, oh, you know what? I'll bet we're actually not doing this. So destroy tree view node, that's not what I want. Child levels update, no, I don't think that any of this is what I want. Root add child with X form. So ultimately this gets called, which calls node acquire. So this guy. Okay, so this is looking at node handles. Doesn't call an ensure allocated until here. Why does that fail then? Because we should, that should be 0, which would skip this entire loop, and it should hit here. Let me rerun this real quick because I need to see why that's actually doing that. So ensure allocated. Oh, I see why. Because I'm a dingus. Nodes allocated starts off at 0. So multiplying that times 2 to grow the size is still going to be 0. Okay. So what we really need to do is say, if we have nodes allocated, use graph nodes allocated. Otherwise use 1. Actually, we should probably say use nodes allocated times 2. Let's wrap this a little bit here. suppose I could load this without a transform if this proves to be too tricky. All right, here's this. Okay, so nodes allocated is 1, which makes sense. It would have fallen into that scenario. Node handles new index 0 and is bleating about that. Why is this still... Okay, sure, allocated should have set up node handles, and that's still null. Why is that still null? So nodes allocated. Oh. Let's see, new node handles. Times new node. Okay, so that should be fine. So we only assign this if we, no, that's foobar. We're only actually assigning this if we should always be assigning this. This should be like down the line. That's why. Elfino, thank you for the follow over on the YouTube side. All right, so let's go to ensure allocated. Yeah, so this bit, we're always reallocating, right? So this should be down here. So only if it already exists do we need to do the copy and the free, but the reassignment should always happen, which means it's wrong all the way down. Why is this literally rebuilding everything every time, too? Thought I had that fixed. Let's run this. Okay, now all these are set up. All right, so I'm just going to let it rip. Invalid mesh config resource name is required. Did I not put a resource name? Did I not put a resource name? Let's see, where was that? I did not. Spawns a mesh attachment. Attachment. Let's just do scene node attachment static mesh. Pointer. Typed mesh attachment. All right, and then typed mesh attachment resource name equals Sponza. So otherwise, what the heck does it load? If only we could multiply by 0 to get something. Yeah, exactly. Smudge, good to see you. Welcome. You have come in right at the end of the stream, I'm afraid. But it's good to see you. I'm just really hoping to get this to work before I call it quits for the night. But I'm not sure that that's going to happen. We'll see. Invalid mesh. I provided a resource name, though. But why though? Invalid mesh config resource name is required. Okay, let's look up and see. Invalid mesh config resource name is required. That should be a not. What? Okay. CodeMonkey BB, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Welcome. All right. All right, this looks like a D array not being defined, most likely. So, scene node initialize, mesh attachment. Okay, so that's returned as null for some reason. Scene attachment acquire rather, attachment count is 0, S attachments, is null. Okay. So the scene attachments never got set up. Okay. Let's see. Let's do scene. Should I do initialize? I think create is probably the place to put this. So we have all of this stuff, mesh attachments. Out scene, attachments equals darray creates. What type is this? It's just scene attachment. Okay. Damn Ducks, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. So scene attachment. All right. One more shot. Still missing something. Mesh loader unload. Unable to find mesh of supported type called blank. Oh, the resource job failed. Interesting. Okay, what caused that? That's interesting. So it's thinking it's an empty string. Resource name is right there. So we would have had this resource name, string duplicate, typed attachment, resource name, typed attachment in this case. Oh, I think there's a misconception about how I did this. Let's see. Attachment type is a cast of the attachment. This should be typed attachment, should be this. Attachment. Node config attachments. Attachment config. This should be attachments sub I attachment. Wait a minute, not that. It should be, okay, so the attachment is that. C node attachment config. Typed attachment should be attachment dot attachment. Right. That's the way we should be doing it. And then it should be able to find the resource name. Or not. Oh, I have to fix it for all these other ones too. This one too. All right, I think that's all of them. Attachment, attachment, attachment. Yeah, exactly. I'm probably going to rename that. Oh, I forgot to actually kill the executable. Dang you, Windows. All right. Scene mesh attachments, mesh attachment indices. Okay. So I'm going to guess. Yeah, this mesh attachment thing didn't get set up correctly. So I think I'm going to have to relook at the attachments logic because that's just not quite correct. Okay, not a huge deal, but I don't have the time to do that tonight. I have to get up early in the morning for work. So this is going to be where I call it for tonight. What I will do is I will check in what I have. So git add commits, work in progress, scene attachment, loading, hierarchy, system, bug fixes. Bug fixes. There we go. So at least this will be available there on GitHub for you guys if you want the code. All right, cool. So with all that said, let me see. Thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate all of you guys being here, both on the YouTube and the Twitch side. I appreciate it. Let me see who I'm going to raid, and then whoever I do wind up raiding, I will link over on the YouTube side if you guys are interested in that. More than likely, because it's already late and I've gone over time, I think I'm probably going to do ferrets tonight. I'm thinking. Unless I see something that really catches my eye. think I'm going to do, I'm going to raid Ferret Software, who is a ferret rescue run by Pirate Software, and all the ad revenue from the channel goes to taking care of the ferrets. And these are ferrets that were basically on life support in some cases, or near-death scenarios, and they've been rescued and they're given a permanent home. They're not rehomed or anything like that. They're given all the medical care they need, food, all that kind of stuff, surgeries if they need it. And so, yeah, I think it's a really good cause, and I like to support it. So I'm going to raid them, and I really appreciate you guys being here, but on both sides. And yeah, I will catch you guys on the next stream. See ya.